You know that feeling when you're scrolling through endless TV listings, trying to decide if a 77-inch screen is really worth the space, the price tag, and the inevitable risk of ending up with a picture that looks great in the showroom but falls flat in your living room? You don't want to waste money on a set that looks amazing on paper but can't handle the glare from your windows or the gaming marathons you pull on weekends. And you're probably wondering whether the hype around LG's newest OLED evo AI 4K model actually translates into day-to-day value for someone who watches movies, streams series, and plays a bit of competitive gaming. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the size. A 77-inch screen is a statement piece. It's the kind of thing that changes the whole vibe of a room. If you have a dedicated media room or a fairly large living area where you can sit at least 810 feet away, this TV can deliver that immersive feel without the wall-hugging effect you get on smaller panels. On the flip side, if your couch is only 3 or 4 feet from the screen, you'll start noticing the individual subpixels, and it can get uncomfortable fast. So the first practical test is the viewing distance. Measure it, and if you're under 8 feet, you might be better off with a 65-inch model. Now, the OLED panel is the star of the show. With 8.3 million self-lit pixels, each pixel can turn completely off, giving you that perfect black that most LED sets can only fake with dimming zones. In a dimly lit room, watching a thriller or a dark sci-fi series feels like you're actually in the scene. Shadows stay deep, details pop, and there's no halo effect around bright objects. That's where the perfect black and perfect color claim becomes tangible. In real life, I set up the TV in a room with blackout curtains for movie nights, and the contrast ratio felt genuinely cinematic, especially with Dolby Vision content from Netflix and Disney+. The colors stayed vivid but not oversaturated, which is a common criticism of OLED when it tries too hard to be rainbow bright. What about bright rooms? LG has added a brightness booster and a bright room-ready mode, which essentially pushes the OLED's peak luminance a bit higher than older generations. In my own experience, I placed the TV opposite a large east-facing window that lets in a lot of morning light. With the bright room-ready mode turned on, the picture remained punchy enough to compete with the daylight. It didn't reach the nits of a high-end QLED, but it was definitely usable. No more squinting or constantly adjusting the room lighting. If you're someone who watches TV with the blinds open most of the day, this is a hidden trade-off that makes the OLED a more viable option than the old, only for dark rooms stigma. The processor is another piece worth dissecting. LG's Alpha 9 AI processor Gen 8 handles what they call AI super upscaling. In plain terms, it looks at lower resolution content, say a 1080p YouTube video or an older Blu-ray, and intelligently adds detail to make it look closer to native 4K. I tested this with a few classic movies that only had 1080p releases, and the upscaled result was surprisingly crisp. Edge sharpening was subtle, and the algorithm didn't introduce the halo artifacts you sometimes see with cheaper upscalers. The AI also manages tone mapping for HDR content, so Dolby Vision and HDR10 titles get a consistent look regardless of the source. This matters if you have a mixed library of streaming services, game consoles, and older media. Speaking of HDR, the TV supports Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, and standard HDR10. The combination of Dolby Vision and the OLED's native contrast creates a very vivid experience for compatible titles. For example, I watched the latest season of The Mandalorian on Disney+, and the highlights like the glint of a lightsaber really seem to jump out. The Atmos side is where things get a little nuanced. The TV has built-in speakers that can decode Atmos, but they're not a substitute for a dedicated sound system. In a small to medium room, the upward-firing drivers add a sense of height to explosions or rain, but you'll still want a soundbar or a full speaker setup for a true theater feel. If you were hoping the TV would replace a home theater system, that's a realistic limitation. Now, let's get into gaming. LG markets this set as ultimate gaming, and the claim isn't just marketing fluff. The panel supports a 120Hz refresh rate, low input lag, and HDMI 2.1 features like variable refresh rate, VRR, and auto low latency mode, ALL. I hooked up a next-gen console and a high-end PC, and the lag felt negligible, well under 10 milliseconds. The VRR kept the picture steady during fast-paced shooters, and the ALLM automatically switched the TV to a game-optimized picture mode without me having to dive into menus. The OLED's response time is practically instantaneous, so there's no ghosting or smearing, which is a big win for